everyone, welcome back to the Neverland Book Club. We are at my desk because I've been writing on a deadline lately for this new novel. I'm calling this my second novel, even though the order in which I've been writing these novels is all over the place. I have perhaps 3 different open-ended drafts waiting to be finished, all with 20,000, 40,000, 113,000 words for each respectively, so But I just wanted to quickly check in and talk about something I've noticed about my reading habits and how they've changed pretty drastically since I've taken writing more seriously these past few years. And so today I'd like to touch on the bittersweet reality of change. When realizing you can never return to your blissful ignorance after the curtain has been drawn back and all the inner workings are now unveiled. Becoming an author has changed the way I read. I thought perhaps writing would simply make me more appreciative of books, and it has for sure, but it's also made me far more observant and analytical of the invisible labor written on every single page. So before I started taking my own writing a bit more seriously in terms of a career, I read pretty emotionally. That is, I was far more of a mood reader. I still am to an extent, but I find myself reading more intentionally than I considered in the past. Even down to the things that would make me stop and stick a little tab on the page, whether it was a particularly purple line of prose or a plot twist that made me sit up in bed. Now I find myself tabbing where I notice structure, pacing, story beats. I'm taking notes now, and I'm not sure when that shift really started. But where my notes before were more so evidence of emotional impact, now my books are tabbed with a bit more strategy. Dialogue that feels like real, true dialogue between two corporeal beings, where the characters are saying one thing, but really perhaps mean another, where you as the reader are not being spoon-fed, but instead trusted to read between the lines. I'll tab moments of tension, rhythm, examples of character introspection that deepen the emotional reality of a scene rather than interrupt it. I still tab beautiful exposition, of course, when information is delivered elegantly, but I also tab poor exposition too, examples of passive voice and whether or not it may be intentional. Though I'm still not color coordinating any of my tabs, that is just too much to ask. Reading for me has always been an escape, but now it feels like it's become part enchantment and part apprenticeship. Each book I pick up, no matter the genre or author, I have a game plan in mind. I'm no longer only trying to escape, and that part of my brain that was once so willing to passively enter a story, to run away with the words and plot and characters, now sits in the driver's seat, insisting we take the route with the most roadblocks because that's the route with the most lessons in craft. This might sound like I'm saying becoming a writer ruins reading, that once you understand the practice, you become incapable of surrendering yourself to a story. But that's not what I'm trying to say at all. It hasn't ruined anything, but it has complicated it. Perhaps permanently. Complicated in a far more rich way I find hard to describe. Clearly. Perhaps I'll explain it this way. Now, when I feel truly moved by a book, I'm able to experience it twice. First, vulnerably, unguarded. I feel the ache or thrill or suspense I have for years. All the emotions that made me fall in love with it in the first place. And then I reflect as a writer. I feel the awe of an excellently executed chapter. I notice choices made for the purpose of pulling these exact emotions from me. Where a scene began, where it cut away, where the author chose to linger and compress time, use repetition, shift tone, trust in silence. All of it too long to list, but that second experience doesn't cancel out the first. It deepens it, gives it structural integrity, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to experience stories in this new way now. I can now admire lyrical, pretty sentences, but I can also appreciate both beauty and efficiency. Passages that might seem like simple poetry, effortless, yet often contain a commendable amount of discipline. I think before becoming an author, I was most often taken by the beauty in writing, the poetic nature of words and how effectively they communicate, from one author to the world, really. And I still feel that for sure. I don't think that sort of appreciation ever goes away. But now I'm moved by control, clarity, choice, by an author's ability to know just how much to say and how much to leave off the page. A paragraph that slips information into the reader's bloodstream so undetectably you don't realize how much work was done until far later. And this awareness of structure and intent is something I feel is impossible to undo. Not just story structure, although certainly that too. But now I can't help but deconstruct a novel piece by piece in the ways I tend to construct them, you know? Inciting incidents, escalation points, pacing dips, midpoint shifts, emotional turning points, whether a climax feels earned or merely loud, when subplot is doing beautiful supportive work rather than just being ornamental, the way a chapter ends in a way that feels compelling. Because that's where we get all of our just one more chapter merch from. I notice more now when a novel understands momentum and utilizes it to make an otherwise mundane plot feel like there's no other matter in the world more important than knowing what happens next. But even beyond the story level, I feel I notice structure at the sentence level far more now than I used to. Long, poetic sentences or short, punchy ones, when the story calls for one over the other. What kind of clause the author chooses to place last in a sentence, since that final beat often carries most of the emotional weight. Repetition as incantation. God, I love that one. And found I tend to use it, especially in this second book. Though I gotta be careful not to overuse certain things, lest they begin to feel dull. Speaking of dull, I've noticed with dialogue how important it is to support it with meaningful interiority. Otherwise, you risk the entire exchange feeling weakened by redundant explanation or poor exposition. Info dumping. And I know we all hate dialogued info dumping. Even paragraph shape, the space it holds on the page, cadence, compression. Ugh. And perhaps the best part is that after all of this noticing, that pull towards stories has become even stronger for me. Peeking behind a novel's curtains has demystified certain things and enhanced the wonder of story entirely. All at once. Books feel a bit less like these sacred objects handed down by genius minds and more like living, breathing things built line by someone who had to make thousands of choices. Brilliant, imperfect, intuitive choices. And that realization has been pretty liberating, because as a reader, it's made me more generous. Though it's also made me far more critical. Like sometimes I'll even change a sentence in my head while I'm reading it because that's simply not how I would have phrased it. Sorry. Which then makes me realize how important style is when writing. Of course I'd have worded it differently. I'm not a robot. The person writing the book I'm reading is also, I hope, not a robot. As humans, we bring to our writing desks something far more valuable than the words. It's the choice. Our histories, no two exactly the same, create this voice we carry with our language and the way we express our truest feelings. Our interpretations of the world will of course differ from others. Every book has a problem it's trying to solve. As readers, we see the author's best attempt at solving that problem, though it's our job to also recognize the problem and witness how one account of the solution might be relevant to us and our real lives. And this involves reading with context, with the awareness of how difficult it is to hold an entire novel together, literally and figuratively, with glue and tape and string. As a writer, this shift has also made me more discerning. I can't unread certain things. I can't ignore when a book fails to make me forget I'm reading a book, you know? I can list about 50 other details, but that's the gist of it really. Once you begin to understand the mechanics of fiction, some illusions become harder to maintain, which is less of a loss and more of an exchange. Maybe? Losing blissful ignorance, but gaining practical knowledge? This entire realization has made me want to reread a lot of my once deemed favorite novels lately. I like to go back and study these stories, read over the tabs I made years ago, and question if I'd still tab those same passages for the same reasons. Interrogate the choices of my past and put them on trial now in the present. And perhaps that represents this shift from reader to writer. The magic never disappears. The relationship becomes more collaborative. You're not only listening to what a book is saying, but how it's saying it. Understanding that effect has a cause and that every emotional response is shaped by craft, invisible or not. And this made me admire authors more than ever, appreciating their voice, however effortless or distinct, writing honestly rather than indulgent, though I do like some indulgence sometimes. And yes, my understanding is still incomplete. That's the most exciting bit. I get to keep learning. This is only the beginning. How exciting! Now terrifying. So yes, my reading habits have changed after becoming an author, but overall, I'm still chasing the same thing I've always been after as a reader. I still want to feel something. Okay, I don't know if any of this made sense. I wrote a lot of the script in a text-to-speech frenzy while driving from one job to another, and a lot of times these scripts are first drafts in order to get them out to you in a timely manner, dear viewers. So thank you for being here, and thank you for listening to the ramblings of a curly-haired clown woman who just so happens to be a new author. My first book, Dancing with Strangers, taught me so much. Writing this first novel was like walking through the forest in Halloween Town and falling into a tree with a door shaped like a book. I truly truly, truly enjoyed every single moment of that process. Except writing the synopsis when I started querying. Why was that harder than writing the book itself? I don't know. But now, writing this next one, it's too much to express at the end of this video how different this process has been. It's an entirely different door I've stumbled upon, and how thrilling to realize it might just be like that with every other book moving forward. More problems needing solutions, more opportunities to explore, more levels to my own voice and understanding. I can't wait. But at the same time, I need to slow down. I need to savor it. And that's what I intend to do. So thank you for being here with me. All right, that's all I have for you today, dear viewers. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you're not. We had a little rush of new people last month and it kind of slowed down. Gotta ride those highs when they come, I guess. Today's shout out goes to Fuzon Zord 9301. Reader's burnout can definitely be a thing, which is why I've always found myself to be a mood reader and why I've been more prone to DNFing certain books now when before I'd force myself to finish them. A reply to your comment from Tammy T3434 quoted me saying, "Reading is like a muscle," but added a very good point. A muscle can be sprained. So read responsibly, children. Pace yourselves. The same can be said about writing. And I'm sure I'll have much more to say on this topic as time goes by, especially when I complete this draft, which, fingers crossed, is on time. So be sure to click that bell to be notified the next time I post either one of these FaceTime-like ramblings, an in-depth book review, a reading wrap-up, or one of the more research deep dive video essays I've been trying my hand at lately. Life is an experiment and it's meant to be lived, so go, live, and remember, stay lost, keep reading. Goodbye. Woo.